Yesterday was the disappearance of Srila Gopal Bhatta Swami. So we're going to talk a little bit about Srila Gopal Bhatta Swami. And tomorrow is the disappearance day of Srila Lokanath Goswami. Srila Lokanath Das Goswami. So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he asked the question that when these great saints have left, can we, because they appeared 500 years ago, can we get mercy from them? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, these great personalities who've entered the spiritual realm often help inquiring spirits on the practice of devotional service. So these great souls, although they're what is called aprakat, you know that word aprakat? There's two words, prakat, it means manifest, and aprakat, came from Africa, unmanifest. In India sometimes they'll say, what happened to so-and-so? And they say, apricot. Means he died. In the West, we say he kicked the bucket. He's gone to meet his maker. He's pushing up daisies. He's a goner. But in the Indian culture, it's a little bit more sophisticated. Apricot. It's just unmanifest. Apricot, unmanifest. So Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Monday Rupa Sanatana Raghunath Goswami, Jiva Gopala Goswami, the 6 Goswamis, Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Srila Jiva Goswami. These are the 6 Goswamis. But there's 2 others also that lived in Vrindavan at the same time. This is in the 1500s. Lokanath Goswami and his uncle, Ugaga Goswami. So these are not ordinary personalities. They're not like ordinary devotees. Even an ordinary devotee isn't really ordinary. Anyone who's a devotee is very special. Anyone who's accepted Krishna as the goal of life and is chanting Krishna's holy name and following principles, they're very special. The Bhagavad Gita teaches us, Manusyanam Sahasra out of thousands. It is very rare actually to be the devotee of the Lord, or to speak of an advanced devotee. So the Goswamis were not just advanced, but they were the most advanced. There's advanced, there's more advanced, and there's most advanced. There's complete, there's more complete, and there's most complete. Purna, Purnata, Purnadvan. So, Gopal Bhatta Goswami was an eternally liberated soul. And he appeared around about 1500. And he got the association of Lord Chaitanya. How did he get the association? Lord Chaitanya traveled to South India, and during Chaturmasya, he stayed in Gopal's house. So what's Chaturmasya? It's a 4 months. Ek, do, tin, cha, ta, masya. It's the 4 months when in India it's difficult to move around. Haribol.
Haribol.
In India, there's 6 months. There are 6 seasons. Ritu. Ritu means season. There are 6 seasons. There is spring. What is spring season? Sanskrit. Vasant. Vasant, that's 2 months. So that would be when? March, April. Then comes Grisha, winter. Summer. It's very hot. Apparently now there's a heat wave in Western Europe. And for the first time ever, in England. I am originally from England. The thermometer hit the record 40 degrees centigrade. It's the absolute record. 40 degrees centigrade in India is nothing. But in England and France, it's high temperature. So then you've got these 2 months, Grisha, Ritu, when it's hot. And it can go up to 50. And I've heard even over down there at one point, it went up to 56 degrees centigrade. They told me that. I've been there when it's been 43, 44. So then after the 2 months of summer, which is dry heat, it's Varsha, 2 months monsoon. And everything is very sticky. You know, it's very sticky. And actually that's the worst time. If you can have a worse time. That's the most difficult time. And that's also when you get lots of diseases and mosquitoes. And sometimes flooding in Sri Mayapur. The Ganges floods. So those 2 months are very awkward. And then you've got Saradiya. And Saradiya is autumn, and it's very nice in India. So Saradiya would be what? September, October. I forget now. Anyhow, it's every 2 months. And then you get Hemant, pre-winter, and then you get winter, which is I've forgotten also in Sanskrit. What is it? Anyone know? Winter? Huh? So this, of course, is only North India. South India, I've been told there's only 2 seasons. It's relatively warm or it's raining. South India climate is better. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, during the month of Chaturmasya, which is the rainy time, stayed in one place because it's difficult to move around and there's floods. And he stayed in the house of Gopal. And his father was a follower and his uncle. They were both followers of the Sri Sampradaya. Now we are not in the Sri Sampradaya. The Sri Sampradaya emphasized the worship of Lakshmi Narayan. Shri is Lakshmi. So they were both in the, I think it was Tirupati. And so Lord Chaitanya stayed with them. And then Gopal was a young boy, perhaps 7 or 8 years old, and he got the association of Lord Chaitanya. And gradually the whole family gave up their worship of boring reverence, that is worshiping Lakshmi Narayan, and were converted to the worship of Radha and Krishna. And they became staunch devotees of Radha and Krishna. Of course, there's no difference in one sense between Radha and Krishna and Lakshmi Narayan. But according to Tattva, there's no difference. But according to Ras, there is a difference. According to spiritual flavor, Lord Narayan doesn't dance in the Vrindavan forest or play games in the river Jamuna or play a flute. It's not that type of worship. It's reverential. Lord Narayan with his 4 hands. So Gopal Bhatta Goswami got their association, became devotee, and later he went to Vrindavan, and he lived in Vrindavan. He has a bhajan kutia at Radhakund, and his samadhi is in Vrindavan. Some of you may have gone there. And he established the worship of a very famous deity called Radharaman. You've seen that? It's a blackish deity, extremely beautiful, about this big, Radharaman deity. So Gopal Bhatta Goswami, an eternally liberated soul, and we can pray to him. Then Lokanath Goswami, he was sent by Lord Chaitanya to Vrindavan around about 1510. And he's also a self-realized soul. Both these personalities, Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Lokanath Goswami, they're eternal servants of Radharani. So it puts them in a different category. They're both actually young gopis, in the spiritual world, that is. But when they appeared in this material world, they had male bodies. And they taught by example how to practice sadhana bhakti. And that's what we're doing. We are practicing sadhana bhakti. We are like apprentices, practicing. It's like you go to school, you're practicing. And then you have an apprenticeship, you're practicing. So we're in the stage of practice. And when that stage of practice becomes mature, then we become what is called siddha, or perfect. So a human being can become perfect in this human form of life, regardless of male or female. This has nothing to do with it. But we are not on that high stage, and we shouldn't pretend to be. We're on a somewhat lower stage, and we are humbly practicing sadhana bhakti. So, there's different ways to practice sadhana bhakti, but the main practice is simply to chant Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta has said, that chanting Krishna's holy name is the emperor of all practices. And 64 different practices are in the Bhakti Samhita Sindhu, like accepting flower garlands that have been offered to the deity. That's one practice. Dancing in front of the deity. That's actually another practice. And the great Vaishnava Bhaktishvara Pandit, he danced in front of, I don't know who he danced, I guess it could have been Lord Jagannath, but for 72 hours. That's not humanly possible. But then he wasn't an ordinary human. He was an expansion of Aniruddha, and Aniruddha is an expansion of Vishnu. So in other words, he was Vishnu Tattva. He wasn't an ordinary person like you or me. So dancing in front of the deity, bowing down, offering prayers, worshipping Tulsi Devi, offering respect to the cow. What else? Hearing Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing scripture, remembering. Now that's called smarana, to try to remember Lord Jagannath, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Krishna and their pastimes. It's not an easy thing to do, to remember. It's called smarana. First of all, your remembrance will be interrupted. You can only manage a few seconds And then you start thinking about your job, the husband, the wife, the children at school. You start thinking about the weather and cricket. And what's on TV, what you will see later on TV. Whether you'll see Bollywood or an English movie. Whatever. We have so many thoughts that come into our mind. So first, smarana will be uninterrupted. And then it would be more uninterrupted. It will flow more. And then it will become more constant. And then the depth of our smarana will become deeper. Deeper. Technically it's called dhruvanashmiti. It's like a drop of water. Drop, drop. You go into a cave. And then drop of water, drop, drop. So to begin with, our remembrance will be like that. Just one thought here, one thought of Jagannath. You think briefly of Guru perhaps. You think briefly of Prabhupada, how he came here to South Africa in 1975 and walked on Durban Beach. I've got the photographs. Prabhupada walking on Durban Beach. And then I found out where it was, and then behind I saw, was it the Edward Hotel? I saw the building was behind. Everything else has changed. The skyline, Durban Promenade. So your remembrance will be very brief. But gradually, drop, 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 more. Then it becomes a stream. Becomes a stream. It's called dhruvanashmiti. It's more constant. And the length of time you're able to remember and how deeply you can remember. So when I'm talking about remembrance, it's not casual remembrance. Oh, I'm not this body. Or the law of karma. This is very general. Remembrance should be more specified, more particular. Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, Lord Krishna's pastimes, Lord Nrsimhadeva's pastimes with Prahlad. This is more focused. So the remembrance comes more deeper, and then it goes to the level that is called samadhi. Samadhi. That's highly advanced. So we have to practice. Everything is a matter of practicing. So there are 64 different types of bhakti. Can anyone tell me any others? Or worshiping deity. So we have the pujari, he's worshiping deity. Offering different items. The Hari Bhakti Vilas describes the different items for etc. But remember, we're practicing. We're apprentices. We're simply practicing. But we practice ringing the bell, waving the incense. Helps. Then, cleaning the temple floor. You can clean the temple floor. Spiritual life or spiritual activities are absolute. Whether you're sitting in the temple president's office, whether you're the so-called big guru with his microphone, flower garland, and cup of water, and fancy seat, or whether you're sitting on the floor, it's absolute. It doesn't actually make any difference. So that's spiritual life. And the more we can become the servant of the servant of the servant, then actually the more advanced we are. In the material world, everyone wants to be what? El Supremo. What's that mean? Number one. In the material world, it's competition. Always number one. I, me, and mine. I, me, and mine. We are one together. What's yours is mine, and what's mine is mine. It's a bogus mantra. So, in the material world, there's competition to be in the center. Then you could say, well, no, I'm interested in looking after my husband and my wife, and I have my children, and I'm really working hard to educate them and feed them. Now that is called, Prabhupada has called that extended selfishness. Extended selfishness. It's your children. It doesn't go beyond that. It doesn't go to the neighbors or someone down the road. It has to be yours. Your wife, your husband, your children, your grandchild. And that's called extended self-gratification or self-extended selfishness. It's still under the category of mine, or as the Hindus say in Phoenix, minds. There's minds. So, spiritual life, everything is for Krishna and Krishna's associates. And you're willing to do anything for their pleasure. Anything at all. And if it means that you're going to suffer, or you will be miserable, then actually that is your happiness. Do you understand that point? If the associates of Lord Krishna, cowherd boys in Vrindavan, and gopis, if they think that Krishna will be pleased by me suffering, then I will gladly suffer. Just for the idea or pleasure of Krishna. Of course, Krishna doesn't want his devotees to suffer, but it's the mood that I'm giving. Whereas in this material world, everything is self-centered. Self-centered. To the extent we have nationalism. Prabhupada said actually this nationalism is demoniac. I'm born in this country, India. And those people across above me there, Pakistan, my enemies. And the people in Pakistan, look at the people in India, say my enemies. There's conflict. But they don't know that the person living in India in his last life was living in Pakistan. It's nationalism. My country. I will die for my country. It's a man-made conception. When we travel, you need a passport, you need a visa, you need your COVID stamp. But when the bird flies over to Zimbabwe or Zambia, there's no passport. There's no demarcation. Now I'm going from South Africa, now I'm going into Malawi, now I'm going to Botswana for the bird. So these territories, they're man-made, often unfairly by politicians. They cut out different places, etc. And then the leaders of those various countries expect you conscription. Fight for your country. Fight for your country. You don't actually have any problem with the enemy at all. You're minding your own business. But there's a thing called conscription. You have to join the army, or the Navy, or the Air Force. They have it in America. In certain countries, Israel, you have to train to fight. So this whole idea of nationalism is actually demoniac. But there are many things that are going on in this world which we don't appreciate and which aren't nice. So we're following sadhana bhakti. concentrating on devotional service to the Lord, which means hearing Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, offering prayers. This is a very important practice when you come before the deity of Jagannath, Subhadra and Balaram, or Radharanath, or even Tulsi Devi, to offer appropriate prayers. And those prayers should be, how can I make advancement in spiritual life? Not, we do not pray, please give me a good son-in-law. Please give me a good mother-in-law. Please give me a win at the Suncoast. Just please, Lakshmi, you're in charge, Lakshmi. Just give me the right water number. Then I can retire to believe to obey. So we should pray for the right thing, which is love of God. And that is the highest, the ultimate thing that an individual, a living entity can pray for. Love of God. Sadhana, it leads to sadhya. Sadhya is the perfection. And the perfection of our very short life is to awaken our love for God. It can be Lord Narayan, as in the case of Narada Muni. It can be Nrsimhadev, as in the case of Prahlad. It can be Ramchandra, as in the case of who? Hanuman, Sugriva. It can be four-handed Krishna in Dwarka, as is the case of the five Pandavas, or Uddhava. The Battle of Kurukshetra, that's actually Dwarka. Or we can aspire to become the servant of Krishna in Vrindavan. And in Vrindavan, one can become the friend of Krishna, if you desire that. Like the cowherd boys, they play with Krishna. They play Guli Danda with Krishna. They jump in the river Jamuna. They pretend to be frogs and play hide and seek with Krishna. Then in Vrindavan, one can, as a devotee, you follow in the footsteps of Mother Yasoda, Nanda Maharaj, Vrishabhana Maharaj, and you're the parent of God. Sounds a little far-fetched, but in devotional service, this is possible. One actually becomes the parent of God. And the nature of a parent is what? To protect. So Mother Yasoda is always worried. Is Krishna all right? Should I chant some mantras for his protection? He's not eating enough. When he goes off with the cows, sometimes the cows are a little rough and they may hurt him. He's swimming in the river Jamuna. Oh my Lord, he's an Indian, he might drown. Because he was born in India, I'm saying, because he's not Indian. But she's very afraid. Protection. She gives him these, you know, when the mother, different amulets for protection. Like they say, a tiger's tooth can protect you. I think sometimes in the Hindu community, what is it? They put a safety pin? Is that correct? It's supposed to keep away ghosts. A safety pin. A what? A what? A little knife. Yes, a little knife. Jagannath Subhadra ki jai. Jagannath, 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 Jagannath. So a little knife. This is to keep away bad things, like ticklish. Huh? Tukulus. Yes, beware of tukulus. Some other Yesod is always thinking like this. Protect. Is he all right? And then when Krishna goes and steals butter and yogurt, makan, basudi, sweet rice from the houses of other gopis, she thinks, why is he stealing it from other houses? I can provide. I have a kitchen full of yogurt. Why is he doing it to other people? Am I not feeding him properly? And then she wants to feed him more. So this is it's a parental relationship. Another Yasoda. And then of course, one can worship Krishna in the mood of Madhurya Rasa, which is extremely confidential. So God or Krishna, he is a person. And just like you have personal relationships, isn't it? You have friends. Well, first of all, you work, you're the servant. Or someone even may come to your house and act in the capacity as a domestic servant. So that's the servant-master relationship. It's there, you see it. And then, when the servant and master become more intimate, they become friends. So you have friends in the material world, a perverted reflection of the eternal friendship with Krishna. Because the friends here down in Phoenix and Durban, they can cheat you. And often they do. They run away with your wife. I know. Not that I was ever married. But I've seen it. I've heard it. They steal so-called friends. They talk behind your back. So it's a perverted reflection. And even if you have a very close friend who doesn't let you down, when you're on your deathbed in the Phoenix Hospital, the Gandhi Hospital, they can't help you. They can stand around you, hold your hand and cry, but they cannot actually help you. So this idea of friendship is there, and we see it in this material world. And then we all have parents, and often we're attached to our parents. And this is all right, socially acceptable. We respect our parents. So in the spiritual world is that parental relationship. It's also there, and I gave the example by the Yashoda Nanda Maharaj, Rishabhana Maharaj. And then conjugal relationship. So this is between man and woman. So the first one is parakiya, girlfriend. Need I say more? I won't say any more. Girlfriend, boyfriend. Very intense, isn't it? There were the two devotees, and they got separated, and they were betrothed, so they weren't married, and they ended up phoning each other, and within a few months, the bill came to 100,000 rands. And that was 20 years ago. And then, to top it all, they got married, and then what? Come on, think. What happened? With a big D, divorced. So humorous. So it's very intense, paramour. And then you get married, and to begin with, it's a little bit intense. It's called there's a period, psychologists have said it, usually lasts 2.5 years. Oh, infatuation period, that's right. Husband and wife. And then it wears off. Wears off quite quickly, and you get sort of, the wife gets it all used to the husband. You know, his bad breath and the way he snores. And the husband gets a little used to the wife. And but then usually children come along, and that sort of keeps them together. So parakia swakia, it's also there in the spiritual world. Whatever's here in the material world, it's there in the spiritual world. But not everything. For example, mosquitoes. I've never heard of mosquitoes in Goloka Vrindavan. But in this material world, you get mother-in-laws, and as you well know, they can be very demanding and loud and fussy and strong. So in the spiritual world, there's the eternal mother-in-law. Her name is Jatila. Jatila. It means she always makes things crooked. Always tries to find fault with Radharani. So this material world is a reflection. We have cows in this material world. There's cows in the spiritual world. You look out of the window, there's houses, there's dwellings, there's trees, there's rivers, there's lakes. It all exists in the spiritual world. But not everything, like the N1, you know, the highway. We don't have highways in Goloka Vrindavan. There are roads, but they're not crowded with cars, Toyotas and stuff like that. So our goal is to go back to the spiritual world, and in conclusion, Prabhupada said the purpose of this Hare Krishna movement, or Vaishnavism, is to train us on, to enter into Krishna's family. It is the perfect family, and it's in the spiritual world. And what we have down here is a perverted reflection. So we continue practicing sadhana bhakti, coming to the temple, hearing, especially Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, understanding the philosophy, or at least trying to understand it, offering our food to the Lord, and then trying to preach to others. If you have something good, you should want to share it. Where's the harm? You want to share it. So you try sharing it with others. That's called preaching. Some people may be interested, and some people are not interested. But there's no harm if we go and try to explain spiritual life. We have to examine our lives and think, what is the best thing we want? Socrates, a Greek philosopher, he said that human life that is unexamined is worthless. You have to examine a little. What am I doing here? What is the purpose of my existence? I don't live very long, 60, 70, 80 years. What direction do I want to go in? Material assets, they come and then they go. And as quickly as they come, they go. I want to be happy, but it seems happiness eludes me. Intoxication doesn't give you happiness. What does intoxication give you? You forget who you are, where you are. You do silly things. Temporarily, you may forget your problems, depression. Someone has died. Temporarily, which means a few hours, but then it comes back. And then you get addicted. Whatever is that drug, you get addicted. So this happiness we're looking for, and that's natural, but you've got to look in the right place. Sometimes the acharyas have given the example, an animal or a human being in the desert, the Sahara Desert. They are dying of thirst, and they start meditating on the water. They even start chanting the name water, 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 water. And then in front of them is a mirage. It's an illusion. It's not actually real, but they think it's real. And they'll run to it, thinking water, an oasis. So in this material world, we think so many things will make us happy. The new BMW, the new TV, the new house, triple-story house, mind you, and it has to have 3 garages, although you only have 1 car. And you must have a swimming pool. You never use it, but it's just there to say. So these things, we create these illusions, fantasies. And the fact is, the fantasy is always greater than the reality. Do you understand that? You create in your mind some fantasy. Let me do this, let me do that. And then when you do it, which is reality, it always falls short. It never quite makes it. So that's the nature of the mind. It's very tricky. It's very subtle. And the mind is very powerful. It creates these fantasies. President of America. Fantasies. And that we chase after them. So to look for happiness is correct. To look for water is correct, but you will not find it in the desert. Therefore, you will not find happiness within this material world. It always seems to elude you. But in spiritual life, you actually find happiness, and then you become satisfied. And that's why people like Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Lokanath Goswami could live in Vrindavan, and they had no house. They would live under different trees. And they wouldn't have a kitchen full of food. They'd just go and beg. You know what it's called? Madhuka? You know what Madhuka? Madhu means? What's Madhu? Madhu? A bee. So the bee goes to one flower, takes a little bit of nectar, then flies to another, and then to another. So the Bhajanamandi, Babajis, they will go to one house and beg a little, and then another house and beg a little, and then another house. Usually it's 5. And if they haven't got anything after 5 houses, they fast that day. It's called Madhuka. They'll fast. They'll take it as higher arrangement. No food came. I remember when I was doing with Lokanath Maharaj, Vrindavan Parikrama, and sometimes I go to houses. They'd always given me the same, very hot, very big type of roti, and buttermilk. Probably it was from the water buffalo. But they'd always give it. Yeah, because it's a part of the culture, you give. So these great devotees, Gopal Bhatta Goswami, Lokanath Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and others, their happiness came from inside. So we pray to such personalities that they can help us in our devotion. Jagannath Sutta Balaram Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Radha Ki Jai. Gopal Goswami Ki Jai. Jagannath Goswami Ki Jai. Anyone have any comments? Would like to ask him a question? Question?
Thank you very much. I was hearing in a class by Srila Prabhupada that it's an anartha to think that one. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. I was hearing in a class by Srila Prabhupada that it's an anartha to think that one segment of society is better than another. But then he went on to say that we can even engage our anarthas in Krishna's service. And I didn't quite understand what he meant by that.
I think I'd have to play that particular. I'd have to play that recording and maybe in context. Anarthas means unwanted material desires. So we don't want those. And one of the anarthas, or material desires, would be to become angry. So generally, we try not to become angry. But you can use anger in the service of God. And the example would be Hanuman, who became very angry towards Ravana and burnt the city of Sri Lanka down and actually killed many of Ravana's soldiers. So that's an example of anger being used in the service of God. Then even Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, he displayed anger. When Lord Nityananda was attacked by Madai, Madai hit him with an earthen pot and blood came. Lord Chaitanya became angry. But it's transcendental. It's not like an ordinary person's anger. It's transcendental. So I can only answer it like that. It's just like your devotees. Now, if one of your family members or neighbors starts criticizing Krishna and saying he was promiscuous, or starts criticizing especially Prabhupada, or perhaps your guru, then what do? You can't help it. You become angry. Now, it may not be appropriate to show that anger. Best thing would be to walk away. But still you become angry. If someone blasphemes Krishna, you can't stab them, hit them on the head with a frying pan. You get taken to prison. So best is to walk away. But the point is, you become angry. Naturally. And actually, if you don't become angry, it's a fault on your part. So there are people that criticize. We just keep our distance, that's all. Anything else you'd like to ask? So I hope to come a few more Tuesdays, but I don't overdo it. So I don't want to sing. Can one of you, for a few minutes, on mantra? short kids.